4, so we have more. Yeah. All right. You can start the stream anytime. Jason.
Yep, you're live.
Okay. All right. I'll call the meeting to order. First on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Next up is approval of the minutes of August 16th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
No. Very good. Is there any discussion, corrections, deletions, or otherwise? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of August 16th? Unanimous. Next up is approval of the roll of accounts of August 12th, 2021, the amount of $61,591.48. Dated August 26th, 2021, in the amount of $1,290,830.25. And dated September 1st, in the amount of $225. Dated September 9th, 2021, in the amount of $74,554.05.
Move to approve the roll of accounts as listed.
We have a motion to approve the roll of accounts. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Erwin. Any discussions or otherwise? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the roll of accounts? Unanimous? Thank you. Board of committees.
Can you guys speak up? It's hard to hear you.
Over this cooler back here.
Okay. All right, we'll work on that. All right, report of committees. Do we have any committee reports?
Let me bring that over.
Sure. That'll work. Can you hear me back here? All right. Can you hear me now back here?
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Report of committees. Do we have any committee reports this evening? Okay. Very good. Next up is public comment. So now that we moved the microphone over here, we'll move back over there. Do we have any public comments? Just to remind everybody, there's state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes to address the board. Any public comments? Before we move the microphone. We do. Okay.
And let's try this.
Reach there. Oh, that's a guy.
Now, stop thinking.
Get the mic in front of you.
Yeah.
Hold it right to you.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Willett, and I'm here as a concerned citizen speaking on behalf of myself and other family members and friends regarding the cruel and ineffective mask mandate and unnecessary testing being done to our children. For 2 years, you've been forcing our children to comply with COVID mandates, which are not based on science, but merely on misinformation. Children have less than 1% chance of being at risk for getting COVID. The constant propaganda from every major news outlet has led us to react out of fear, pushing us into this COVID frenzy. So what is this all for? The PCR tests that we are subjected to were never meant to be used in identifying this disease. That is why we're seeing 97% false positive. The nasal swabs used are sterilized in cancer-causing agents, ethanol oxide. Then there are the health risks associated with mask wearing, bacterial infections, headaches, anxiety, skin rash, acne, as well as impaired cognition, suicidal thoughts, and on. Surgical and cloth masks do nothing to prevent viral transmission, per Dr. Anthony Fauci. On multiple occasions, he has stated masks are ineffective. We should all realize by now that face masks have never been shown to prevent or protect against viral transmission, which is exactly what they have never been why they have never been recommended for use during seasonal flu outbreaks, epidemics, or previous pandemics. If a surgeon were sick, especially with a viral infection, they would not perform surgery as they know the virus would not be stopped by their surgical mask. Where is our government's so-called concern in all of this? Nowhere to be seen, in my opinion. They are more concerned with controlling every aspect of our lives. Why are our borders wide open? Thousands of unvetted, illegal immigrants flood into our country daily, while our own children are forced to walk around with these masks and keep 6 feet apart. These unvetted illegal immigrants are being transported throughout our country without anybody knowing their whereabouts. This shot does not come without risk, nor will it prevent you from getting COVID. Israeli hospitals are 85% full of COVID patients, but the country has 90% of its citizens are fully vaccinated. Some of the risks from the shot include blood clots, inflammation of the heart, myocarditis, sterility, uncontrollable shakes, headaches, dizziness, extreme fatigue. Cancers are through the roof, and worst of all, death. The psychological damage that is being done to our youth is detrimental in their critical years of development, which in turn will have consequences of a proportion which we cannot fathom for generations to come. Have you ever wondered who Dr. Fauci really is? I'm almost done. Why does Bill Gates what does he have to do with all this? What about the Great Reset? Who are the Dirty Dozen? And why are they being canceled? Alternate remedies treat COVID other than remdesivir, which is known to cause renal failure within 3 days of taking the drug, which has been known, but they're still going to tell you to do it. And in fact, they make you do it. So anyway, and what is the truth behind ivermectin, and why after 30 plus years on the market have they now decided to remove access to this Nobel Peace Prize drug? We have seen the benefits of this amazing drug treating COVID patients. We have gathered information from all sorts of subjects and more. We have many interviews with prominent doctors, scientists from around the world. This is information you will not find on a Google search. Its label is misinformation, then promptly deleted on one sentence.
Okay, 1 second.
Okay, yeah, well, more than one sentence, just like the school. Back in the day, this is just what you did to make the best possible decisions on your health care. Why would you do your research? You would do the research and the pros and cons, not anymore. They remove all sources of which challenge their validity. I encourage you to better be informed and read this information that we are providing. For anyone out there who has regrets on getting the shot, there is protocol and there's help out there. Thank you, and God bless America.
Any other comments? Currently? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. right, next up on the agenda is administrative report. Actually, I probably should want Mike, please. Should look for on the agenda. All right, administrators, who wants to start? Mr. Bell's gonna move the mic. I'll bring it to you. Would you like to start? I'd be rude if I said no.
All right, to try to ease and Mr. Preble and I coming up separately, we've kind of divided up and we'll kind of both be here together. The first thing that I want to state is how excited I am to have the students back full-time and have the staff back, everybody in the building. That brings its own unique challenges. It definitely puts a pep in my step seeing students in the hallways and in the classrooms. But again, it comes with its own unique challenges as we're trying to find the balance of supporting the needs of the students who haven't been in full-time school in a year and a half, as well as supporting the staff in their needs with them supporting the students when they haven't had to do that for a year and a half. Nobody has done this under COVID protocols before, having everybody in school 100% of the time. So, again, I am very lucky to have such a supportive staff and a wonderful student body to get school up and running. I'll let you hit on a couple of those topics.
Sure. Before I get going, just echo what Chad was saying. It's great to see everybody back in school. They seem to be happy amongst, being with their friends and whatnot. The staff is working really hard to get things going, but also acclimating them back into school after being out for such a long time. So it's really nice to see everybody here, familiar faces, and, under these circumstances, I think they're doing a great job. As you had heard about, we have virtual students this year that are completely remote through a program called Edgenuity. We currently have 18 students for the first half of the school year taking part in classes, and they're basically classes are matched up with classes they would typically have here on a regular day. Mrs. Pinkham is the part of her teaching duties is the coordinator of this program. So she starts out in the morning with a homeroom with the students that are doing the virtual programs and whatnot, and then she does some activities with them, and then they go off and they do their classes through the virtual program, at their own pace as they need be. It seems to be going pretty well. There's a big learning curve for everybody that's involved with that right at the beginning, but all in all, I think it's pretty successful, and students are getting out of it essentially what they're putting into it. So it's new for us, but I think that it's positive for those students. Now, moving on to another topic is lead pool testing. We currently have, as of last count, 116 students signed up for pool testing. We'll do our third round tomorrow morning when kids come into school. Some basic stats that we have for that. There were 2 cases here in school of COVID-19 prior to the pool testing starting. 37 students were named as contacts. 18 students didn't need to quarantine because they were vaccinated, and 19 students needed to quarantine for 10 days. Since starting the pool testing, we've had 2 rounds. We've had 8 cases of COVID. 98 students were named as contacts. 68 did not need to quarantine because they were either vaccinated or in pool testing. And 30 students did have to quarantine for the 10 days because they weren't part of either the testing or vaccinated and were contacts. And one final thing to announce is that we will also have parent-teacher conferences next week, October 6th and 7th, from 3 to 6, and these will be done virtually, and then there's more information coming up to parents and students about that soon.
Thank you, Mr. Preble. Also want to point out that we are having our NEASC accreditation visit coming up on October 17th and 20th. It's not a lot of the work that a lot of people want to be doing right now. We've got a lot of things going on, obviously, but it's an important step in helping our school improve and constantly improve. So we're looking forward to that. Homecoming's coming up this weekend. There's going to be a bonfire Friday night, October 1st. The games will be on the 2nd, and I think pretty much every team is playing, or they were at one point scheduled, and Jim's going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to cap that off at the homecoming dance. And I know a lot of conversations have been had behind the scenes about homecoming and whether or not we can safely do it. And as a school administrator, you've got to weigh the options of what are the safety concerns with COVID, what are the protocols you can put into place, and the mental health of our students, and giving them back some of the things that they need. I face it as a parent, I know what everybody's going through. There's a delicate balance there. So there are a few things that we had to put in place to try to pull off the dance in a safe manner while adhering to the CDC guidelines. So there are 3 basic things that we put into place. Only Winslow High School students are able to come to the dance. And the rationale behind that is adding students that don't come to Winslow High School increases the chances that we're adding more risk of somebody that might have COVID that could eventually shut down the school. So, in weighing those options, you got to look at the risk of potentially shutting down the school and what strategies can you put in place to mitigate that chance. Again, we're taking a risk having the dance begin with, but I think it is worthwhile doing it for our student body who have missed out on so much for the last 16 months. We're moving the dance outside. And the rationale that if we have a dance inside, every student that would attend the dance, even wearing a mask inside, becomes a contact. And if you have, homecoming can bring 200 to 300 kids. If you have that inside your gym, you're taking 200 or 300 potentially out of the school population. So it would essentially shut down the school with one COVID case. The dance floor. The area that will be considered the dance floor is students are going to have to wear a mask even though it's outside. And again, the rationale there is when you have physical activity, like let's say a football game, and you have students that are outside, right? They're not wearing a mask. Everybody that's participating in that football game ends up being a contact of that COVID case because of the physical activity piece. If you're dancing on a dance floor, that's physical activity. You're in close contact with each other. So one layer of mitigation to be able to have this dance is if everybody on the dance floor is wearing a mask properly, we don't have to worry about that potential spread and closing down school after that. Yeah, and that's it from the high school.
Rain or shine?
So, I'm glad I skipped over that piece. So we are trying to find a tent to rent. That way we don't have to worry about the weather. Unfortunately, tents aren't easy to find, and companies that have tents are having a hard time finding employees to put up said tents. So we're still trying to hit the phone some more today to try to find that. But unfortunately, that will be weather dependent. And it will also be COVID dependent on, we've had quite a few cases in the last week, and hopefully we don't get a phone call this week that limits our ability to have that dance for the kids. They deserve it.
Any other questions for the high school?
Not a question as much as, are we gonna do like a monthly tracking with these numbers so that we can see the progress if it, whichever way it goes, so that we can see trends, and
We're constantly tracking. And
so we're gonna have
Reporting,
reports
yeah.
updated on that every time.
Okay.
Good.
thank you.
Very good. All right. Very good. Just want to try to keep things moving. We've been running real long on our meetings, so.
All right, no, thank you, everyone. I want to start by thanking staff, board, and Peter, as we kicked off the school year as well, so echo a lot of what Chad's comments. I'd be remiss to not thank our school nurses, specifically Ms. Diaz for me, because I work closely in a lot of these situations, so thank you, Tammy.
I did owe that. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're just going to highlight a few things. Chris and I are going to alternate as well, some of the things that have been exciting in the last first 3 weeks. So Chris, I'll let you kick it off.
As mentioned, teachers are excited to have their students back in their classrooms on a regular basis. Obviously, there's been some, exchange students in and out over the last few weeks, but they're just trying to reestablish the routines. The students have been out for so long, being in a classroom, it's a long day for them, coming back after being at home or wherever. So getting those routines established, establishing relationships with those students. Establishing relationships with the students has been a focus and priority right from day one when they arrived. There's a lot of activities that took place outside the first couple of days for students and staff to just get to know each other and then reacquaint relationships that the students already had with one another. So that went off very well. So we're pretty excited about that. And, communicating between the school, the families, and the teachers is certainly a priority that Jason will add a little bit more to here as he goes over the school goals.
Extracurricular, thanks to Jim, every day our kids are getting announcements about COVID and other schools. Today we sent 2 teams off and kids are ecstatic at that 2 o'clock dismissal, so it's exciting to see kids participate. Civil rights, we've had over 20 student participants weekly, so again, tracking attendance and all of the protocols in place, but great involvement. And upcoming, we have math team, student council, Renaissance, art club, and our drama team. So we're excited about that. And we're currently discussing, we have parent-teacher conference as well this coming month in October. And our student spotlights will be recognizing in a different fashion the hard work that the students are putting in academically so far.
Starting tomorrow and Wednesday, our 7th and 8th graders will be doing iReady math testing, and that'll be done during their math classes. And it's just to establish a baseline of where our students are in math at this point, so our teachers have a better gauge of, where their strengths and weaknesses are and where they need to focus their instruction. After that, the following week, the state NWEA test will be coming up on October 12th and 13th, and we'll do that in the fall and spring, both of these tests. And then at the end of October, there will be a reading, the DRA test. I'm sure you've heard about those in the past. Those will be scheduled to take place in late October. So there's a lot of things coming along pretty quick, and we're back in the routine. So hopefully these will be some effective measures to get our students back up to speed.
I have 2 questions. One regarding, you guys are tracking COVID numbers as does the high school, and we can see updates from time to time, not required every single meeting, but when there's a noticeable changes, you probably should see that. Second one, you talk about, do the kids get breaks that's similar to what they used to between periods, or how does that work this year?
Good question. So the transitions are 2 to 3 minutes. The transitions always alter from the high school, so there's no crossing paths. In an ideal world, once in a while they may cross paths, but the regularly scheduled transitions are about 3 minutes at a different time. Most of the teachers right now are giving mask breaks. Usually that consists of staggering. Some teachers do it at the beginning of a period, some at the end. It depends on a lot of factors. So that would constitute a break, and then we do a breakfast in the morning. So we have a break time, 10 minutes, and we separate 7th grade and 8th grade. Again, stagger around the high school breakfast. So throughout the day, they're going to probably have 2 to 3 mask breaks. Outside, typically, they'll have a 10-minute break for breakfast, and then a lunch, which runs about 22 minutes.
They've got seat tables set up outside, students that want to eat outdoors, and that's a 20-minute plus break of, taking their masks off. They're at the tables, we limit 4 to a table, but it's pretty popular to be outside and sit outside with their friends.
Thank you.
And we have the outdoor classroom space as well, so it's not uncommon for a teacher to bring their entire class out in 57 minutes, take the mask off as well.
Great.
How many virtual students?
4, the question was how many virtual students? We currently have 4 at the middle school.
What is a virtual student?
We don't do questions from the public. This is for the board and such. I mean,
Can you describe what a virtual student is?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a virtual learner is a family that has opted to go remote for the, we've designated it time. So we're a trimester at the middle school, so they may designate to be at home and learn virtually due to a compromised family member. There's a lot of reasons that a family may elect to do that. So we sent an email, we took the list from last year, some of them, in our case, all of them that were remote last year elected to go virtual again due to various circumstances. So I think Chris just mentioned that Edgenuity, they log into a program, so they're still a Winslow student. So we would track attendance and other pieces. They can still participate in all those things that I mentioned, the extracurriculars. They just elect to do it virtually every day.
Do they have cameras in the classroom if they're a virtual student where they can watch the teacher while they're at home?
Yes, but not our teachers.
Oh.
It's pretty common.
Set of teachers that are teaching the courses.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All set for the junior high? All right. Why don't we keep right on going? How about, Gala from the elementary school?
Use my loud voice. All right, we wanted to first take a minute to thank everybody for all their hard work getting the school year up and going, but specifically our custodial staff who made our building pretty sparkly clean and ready to go for our students on the first day. The kitchen staff who made the transition from having half of the students and having to feed half of the students back to everybody in the building again, plus in our case, an additional grade level. So they made that transition and it's going pretty smoothly. Also our technology team, they made sure that our devices were ready to go when we needed them. So we were able to get them out pretty quickly at the beginning of the year. And lastly, I want to thank, and I am stealing this idea from the other principals, thank our nurses, Mrs. Choate and Mrs. Heegers. They have done a tremendous amount of work. Teachers and students have been working on teaching and learning the routines that are needed to make this school year successful. They're also working on beginning of the year assessments like the DRA2, which is a reading assessment, has already been mentioned, and the iReady math assessment, which this is our first year with it. This will give our teachers valuable information so that they can intentionally plan based on student needs. The transition back to in-person learning with all students 5 days a week has been great for most students. We've seen many happy faces, even behind face masks, and voices that are excited to be back. As we anticipated, this transition back has been a bit more challenging for some students. Thankfully, part of our planning process was to add Mr. Hersom to our administrative team this year. Mr. Price, Mr. Hersom, and myself have been working to build rapport with all students, but are focusing on students who we see are struggling the most. We've already seen the benefits of this work. Today, our building had our first math committee meeting to look at new curriculum. This is our last year for our math curriculum. I don't know what the official term is, but I call it end of life. It's the end of our current curriculum. Our math specialist, Keith Martin, has been leading the way in this process. He has done a great job at vetting options and setting up meetings with program vendors. We have 5 educators from our building that are on this committee. And we're thankful that we have that many. Apparently, when Mr. Martin was talking to some of the vendors, they were shocked that we could get that many people on board because typically 2 or 3 people are the amount that they see. So they were pretty thrilled. I think this just shows how invested our staff is in making sure that the curriculum is a good fit for our students. That is all I have for you.
Very good, thank you. Do you have anything from Kyle or Tom for the elementary school? Or?
Thank you. What I have to share is just an update to the board, and I hope I don't steal something that Mr. Tiviton was going to share with you, but the town council at the most recent meeting did approve the don't know if it's called an ordinance at their level or not, to name our playground after Steve and Frank, as we had talked about at the previous school board meeting. So I guess that generated quite a lot of excitement. I'm not a Facebook kind of a person, but I heard the next day that it got out there pretty quickly. And a lot of people are calling or making contact saying, I want to be there for that when you do an opening ceremony for that. So I've been in touch with Mrs. Frank and explained to her, I figured it was time to share with her what it was that we were cooking up, since it was probably going to get out there anyway, and talked about a ceremony that would most likely occur in the spring. There's still a few more steps for us to take here in the fall. And it hopefully will be something that we won't be as concerned about our distancing and all the things we've been talking about tonight. So we're looking to the spring. I may have mentioned this to the school board that his birthday is April 1st, so we're looking for something around that time frame to dedicate the naming of the playground on his behalf. So that's what I have to share from news from the town council. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
We can't have nice stuff around here.
Can't take John anymore.
Make it stop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to echo a lot of what's already been said. I feel like it's been a really positive start for the first month or so of school. There's been a lot of energy and excitement in the school. It's nice to see our students throughout the building. And I really enjoyed my time getting into classrooms, seeing what's going on in the classrooms, and getting to know our students. And looking forward to continuing that. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I was asked last meeting, but I think it was Mr. Ferry, what the numbers were for junior high and high school participation. And as of September 13th, we had 83 junior high athletes in the school, which was up 6 athletes. And we had 117 athletes for the high school, which was down 7 students, seven athletes. We have had a high level of attrition this year, and I think it's due to the fact that students became disconnected with the school and their peer group. And we've had some students who have started and left us, and hopefully we can get them back at some point to play sport. Chad had mentioned that we have homecoming this weekend. We have all our teams not playing on Saturday except for cross country. Will be at the Festival of Champions in Belfast, which is one of the premier races in New England. So I don't blame them for wanting to be there. We have girls soccer at 9, boys soccer at 11, field hockey at 10, and football will play Wells at 1 o'clock. And hopefully we'll have good weather and we'll have a great day. Peter had asked me about a week ago, or he asked me how things were going, and I can tell you between 2 and 4, all I see is smiles on the kids, and it feels like it's back to normal when I see those students out there. So from that, just part of my job, I see a lot of young people who are happy, and that's great to see.
Question.
Yes.
Do we have the contests that were canceled due to COVID?
We've had teams quarantine. Field hockey hasn't played in 2 weeks. They had a large number of students quarantined. We lost the football game last weekend due to Herman being quarantined. So it's not just our students who are quarantined, it's other schools. But every sport has pretty much lost an athlete or two over the periodic time because they've been quarantined. So yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Our goal is to make every game up if we can. Football, with the exception of football, it's hard to make football up.
Good.
Hello, my name is Michelle Lake. I'm the curriculum coordinator. And I have a couple of updates to share in terms of curriculum. Already has been mentioned, we have begun iReady testing. That is the diagnostic math assessment that we purchased so that we can have a look K-12, which is something new for us. We're very excited about that. The elementary school has done that already. The middle school and high school are doing that now. The goal is to have that all completed, that first round, by October 8th, when we will have iReady come and do a second faculty development presentation with our actual data to look at it, learn how to read it, interpret it, and then apply it to instruction. So we're excited about that. As you've heard, NUIA begins in October as well. We gave that in the spring for the very first time. So we're excited to do it again in fall now, knowing a little bit more about what we're doing, and then to look again in the spring to see what growth we make over the course of the year.
I've been spending some time doing a bit of a listening tour with our department chairs throughout the entire district as I prepare for K-12 vertical alignment meetings we're having in the end of October, where I've asked representatives from elementary school all the way through department chairs up in middle and high school, where we will meet and talk about curriculum K-12. It's something that we did when I was a teacher years ago, and we loved it. We loved those conversations. And of course, the last couple of years, those conversations have dulled because COVID has become so loud. So I'm really excited to be bringing that meeting back. Peter's excited about it, to be talking each department, to check in where we are, what is the work we need to do this year, and what are our goals. I can tell you that on the surface this year, we're looking at math programming in the elementary school K through 5, as Mrs. Gower referenced. That work has begun. It began last year, quite frankly, and we're moving forward with it this year. The English language arts program at the elementary school is also about to reach its end of life. And so we will begin researching what are our options out there, what are our goals for that kind of program, what's our data telling us about how our kids do, and then finding some programming for, building a committee next year and moving forward. Similar process to what we're doing with mathematics, we'll be doing with literacy at the primary school. For science, the middle school, we'll be discussing whether we're going to keep the current curriculum, which is a step-up program we rent from the Rise Center at the University of Maine, or if we'll go with another program. And there are a few options, so this is the year we'll be looking at that. The standards for language arts and social studies were updated recently. I say recently, it's been maybe a year or so, a couple of years. So we'll be taking a look at K-12 to make sure our curriculum is aligned with those new standards and the flavor of those new standards. And we'll be doing the same work with social studies. So we have a lot on the burners here to move forward with, but it's all very exciting. And every meeting I've had with the teachers, they're super excited to be talking about teaching and learning because the conversation is so much about COVID lately. To really talk about what we do every day with the kids has been very exciting. In terms of instruction, we framed this year around accelerated learning versus remediated learning. So I gave some workshops on that at the beginning of the year with the faculty, and we'll continue talking and learning about what are those high-impact teaching strategies we can employ to move our students right along now that we've all returned to school. Thank you.
Any questions for Michelle? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gagnon, Special Education Director. We, as our students have returned to in-person learning, our services have also returned to in-person learning, which is very exciting for our students, and that means that our related service providers are able to see students again in person. We are also offering a remote option for students. We have about 14 students that receive special services that are doing the online program. We recently had 6 of our staff trained in Inspire Reading program, which was a 2-day program. The DOE has offered additional reading programs for direct instruction for special education students. They're called Seeing Stars and the Lips Reading Program, and some of our staff will also go through that training, but we have that as a tool for our students. We've had some nice success with our vocational activities at the high school. We have our students volunteering and doing some recycling activities, some painting of dugouts at the rec center, and doing some shopping and things of that nature, and just kind of getting some life skills experience. So that's been nice to see.
Any questions for Jennifer from the board? Roger, thank you. Shelley, you got anything for us?
Nope, I have nothing. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you have anything for us?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
All right. Mike? All right, I think I got everybody. Finance assistance report. Want to start there?
Yeah.
All right, so far, 23.29% of our fiscal year has passed.
and 25.56% of the budget has been spent. Something to keep in mind, you may have noticed one of the roll of accounts was a bit larger than the others. We actually, in the past month, made 2 of our bond payments for our renovations, for the new bond and the old renovation bond. We made the entire principal payments as well as about half of the interest payments. So you'll see over the next couple of months, since we made those large payments now, over the next couple of months, things will kind of even out with the percentages.
Any questions from Amanda? Thank you.
Good evening. First, I'd like to begin by thanking all of you who are here tonight. I sincerely mean that. One of the best things that we can do is come together and have conversations. It's important for us to hear what your concerns are. It's also important for you to hear the concerns that we face. Sometimes I think that some of the things that we do are things that we're planning, and it's just something that's we're doing as a school, and we don't have to do it. We're following the recommendations of the CDC, which we felt was extremely important for a number of reasons, some of which I'll mention tonight. I think the thing that we all agree to, I think the thing we could all agree to in this evening, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we all want our students to be in school 5 days a week. And we all want them to get as best quality education as possible. And we all know that the way that happens is to have them here. The other thing that I think we would all agree to, and we may differ in opinion as to whether or not we believe in some of the things that we are being asked to do based on the CDC and the work that they've done. But I think we would all agree that you want us to keep your students, or provide your students with the safest possible learning environment that we can. Take COVID out of the picture for just a moment and think about other things that require or surround school safety. I don't think there's a person in this building, in this room tonight, that would want us to do anything less than the best that we can do to keep our kids safe. Again, we may not always agree, and I respect that, but I am truly appreciative of the fact that you're here listening to some of the things that we need to do in order to keep your kids in school. With that, thank you for being here tonight. First thing that I'd like to report under my report is the MSMA 45th Annual Conference, and this is for board members. It's going to be virtual again this year because of everything that's happening. In your packet, or Amanda has passed that out, you'll see some information on that conference. You'll see what the agenda items could be. You'll see what the sessions are. If you are interested in attending this and participating, let Amanda know and she'll register you for that conference. The next quick hitter is just transfers. We've had a lot of people ask to transfer from one position to the next, mostly ed techs. So Dan Goss went to elementary school special ed tech 2 to a special ed tech 3, and he's replacing Rachel Leak. Jocelyn Pooler, ed tech 2 to ed tech 3, Winslow Junior High School life skills, replacing Malin Bickford. Brandon Wood, Winslow High School special ed teacher, replacing Art Meneses, and that was just a swap from one building to the next. Brandon was a COVID teacher last year. He went to Art's position. Art transferred to the elementary school. So those are just pieces that I just wanted to inform you and let you know. The other thing that I had under my report was an update on the
proposed Winslow Elementary School additions. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this, one of the allowable uses of the COVID funding was to add space to a building for social distancing. And so, as you know, we were utilizing some of the old junior high space with grade 6 last year. This year, because of the mitigation strategies that we've put in place, we could put all kids in the buildings where they belong. However, we're very tight in that we don't have an extra classroom at the elementary school with everybody there the way it is. So there's a lot of nice things happening in Winslow. A lot of families want to move here because they've heard of some great things happening here. Our numbers continue to grow at the elementary school, which is a great thing. But we need to position ourselves for those families and for those numbers. The ability to use some of these CARES or Esser funds for construction is pretty special for us because we can utilize those funds. It won't be on the taxpayer, on the backs of taxpayer dollars, because it's the federal funds.
Which is us.
Which is you, but not locally, not local taxes, is really what I'm getting at. So the issue with it is if you don't utilize the funds, you lose them. They go someplace else. So in my humble opinion, as a superintendent of your community, I would like to see those funds utilized in your community to help you, help our kids, help make this a better place in the future. So we could put 4 classrooms, add 4 classrooms potentially to the elementary school with some of this money, which is what we've been looking at doing. And so where we are right now is we're able to work with the same construction company, and we're able to work with the same architect that did the work for the junior high school. We worked with the Commissioner of Education and the Bureau of General Services in order to receive a waiver, because there's a timeline with these funds, and you have to expend them in a certain amount of time. So we've received the waiver, so that's great news. We're in the final stages of the approval of the Esser funds in order for us to move forward with all of this. And there is a construction timeline that they've started to put in place that I'd like to share with you, just so that everybody can see what that looks like. So again, this is a very simple, basic 4 classrooms with some bathrooms. It's all that there's funding to allow for. Committee would be put together to just look at those, what they are proposing, what those 4 classrooms would look like. When that elementary school was originally built, it had a footprint for an extra wing. This proposal would just go to that footprint and add 4 classrooms, 2 downstairs, 2 upstairs, so that this community continued to grow. You continue to extend that out if you had to in the future years. Any questions on that timeline that you have in front of you? Earl?
Yeah. We've got one on here for projected start. Do you have a projected end?
Yes, there is. The projected end would be on the 22nd. The projected end was going to be on the 23.
Okay.
September of 23, I believe. So it remains to be discussed at this point. Obviously having a conversation with town council in order to discuss this project, if they're aware of this project. Indications right now seem that they would be in support of doing something like this with these funds. So having a conversation with the council, putting a committee together just to look at some of the drawings that they're proposing. Nothing is in final stages right now, everything is in preliminary stage. And moving ahead with the process.
Peter, the contingency funds would all be covered by CARES?
Yes. Yep. That's all that I had, Joel. Do you want me to just stay here and move ahead to the next piece?
Makes sense, yes, old business.
So under old business, and some of this has been mentioned already, but I just wanted to touch upon it a little bit. And that talks about the reopening of schools and how it's going. And I think the building principals kind of mentioned to you what that looks like. And I guess I need to just explain a few things, and maybe this will help in the process. One of the things that I absolutely hate doing it, is sending those cryptic emails that I send to all of you. That starts off by saying, "Dear parents, students, staff, on September 16th, we've been informed that we've had another incident. We were informed of another positive, an individual testing positive at Winslow Elementary School." I hate sending those to you, but I have to.
Why?
Because I need to inform the community. You have to inform the community. I want to be transparent and let you know that it's happening. And it's being done in such a way that all you really need to do is read the first sentence, if you want to. Because the first sentence tells you everything. What school? That's all you really need to do. The other thing that it tells you is that if you read the message and you haven't been called, you're not involved. That's why it's designed to do. To inform you that there's a case, to let you know where it is, and to let you know it's not you if you haven't been called. So that's what it is. I've had communications from some people when this first started that we weren't being transparent because we had missed one. So I'm very careful to make sure that I'm very transparent with all of this and informing all of you. The other thing that I would like to just point out, and whenever we're notified of a positive case, please understand it's because somebody has gone to a medical facility and they've tested. Once they test positive, that medical facility, that information is loaded up to the state. We as a school are then put on the radar. Once you get a certain number of those, they start investigating. When the CDC starts investigating, they start asking questions. One of the first questions that they ask you is, what are your mitigation strategies? We would be shut down today, folks. The elementary school would be shut down because the elementary school has had enough cases, positive cases at this point, to be deemed what they consider outbreak status. Now, when you hear outbreak status, you kind of freak out because you think, oh my God.
Not anymore.
Okay, not anymore, right? And the reason that you don't freak out is because of the things that we have in place so that we don't have to shut down. So when you look at it from the standpoint of outbreak status, and when we received that status the other day, one of the things that has to happen, obviously the CDC speaks to our nurses, the inspector speaks to me. They want to see what we're doing for a plan. They want to see what we have in place. I have a conversation with them. They say to me, you're doing everything that we've asked you to do. You don't have to close down. as opposed to, and I know that somebody mentioned something about propaganda, but I'm not making this up, as opposed to some of these headlines in the newspapers starting back from in September, where school remote after new outbreak and they shut them down. The school didn't shut it down, CDD shuts them down because of the information that they have. That's what we don't want to have happen here. Don't want that to happen. Ma'am, I'll take your question.
I have a question about this, there's 20-something students so far that have tested positive between the elementary school and high school. Have those all been outside of the classroom? Is that why there's so many kids having to quarantine?
The transmissions are not coming from within the school,
Okay.
and they're not coming from within the school because of the mitigation strategies that we have in place.
No, why they're coming from the inside school, not my question. If they're coming from the classroom or not, was my question. So none of them are coming from the classroom at all. They're all outside of school, sports, daycare, whatever.
As much, from what we can tell, yes. Based on our contact tracing, that's where it's happening, from outside, yes. Yep. And that's a great question, because that's one of the things that they ask us when we have cases that put you in outbreak status. They start asking you, what contact tracing, and they work with the nurses to see, where do we think this is happening? Is it being spread from within? So that's one of the things that we need to respond to.
Does the CDC ask you, or maybe they can't share because of HIPAA, I don't know, about the difference between asymptomatic and someone with symptoms? Is that discussed?
It's part of the nurse's report that's uploaded.
Okay.
All of that information. And that's the other thing that John is alluding to. The amount of work that's gone into this in terms of reporting information has been incredible. Don't know if you're aware of this or not, but in order to continue to service your students and the staff, we've used some of our CARES money to hire 2 additional nurses. So we now have 5 nurses working in the school district in order to support the students and the staff. So those nurses are better able to help with pool testing, help with a lot of the things that need to take place in order for us to stay in school. So a couple of things I just want to mention. We're in school 5 days a week, in-person learning. We haven't had to close down. We see kids that are happy to be back. We've had senior students attend some of our return to school meetings and make comments such as, nobody wants to wear a mask, but if the inconvenience of wearing a mask is going to give me a senior year that's going to be somewhat near normal, I can deal with it. And we're really proud of those kids to say that, because they have an understanding of what it is we as a school district have to go through in order to provide a quasi-normal year. Number of students enrolled in pool testing, that's been mentioned. I asked the nurses, because it continues to grow. I asked the nurses how many. Right now we have 530 individuals participating in pool testing. 115 of them are staff. I can't tell you how much of an impact that's made. When we first started contact tracing, I'd get a call from the principal and say, we have a positive case, we're doing contact tracing right now. Okay, all hands on deck, everything goes crazy, because you gotta look under every nook and cranny to make sure you meet the requirements that they have for us to meet. So we get to the end and we say, okay, how many close contacts do we have? Principal would say 17, we're gonna put 17 out. And we all sit there and go, oh my God. Because we don't wanna make those phone calls either. We don't want to make them either. We understand it impacts the community. We understand it impacts people that are working. We don't want to do that. But if we're going to stay open, we have to do it. Now it's different. Now I get a call, got a close contact, okay. One of the things on there is pool testing. All right, because the number of students are vaccinated, number of staff are vaccinated, we don't have to worry about them because the kids are pool testing. So now I get this, how many close contacts did you have? 20. We get to the end, an hour later of doing all the contact tracing. How many students did it affect that we have to say they need to quarantine? 3. Well, that's a heck of a lot better than what we were doing. And we continue to work hard at getting better with providing an education for those 3 that are out in terms of being out for 10 days. How do we make sure we keep them up? So that's been a huge improvement. It's not perfect, folks. I will tell you it's not perfect. But I will tell you that I've never seen a school, group of individuals, teachers, work, nurses, custodians. Everybody in this organization is doing everything they can to keep your kids here. I've never seen people work this hard. And to the board, I'm going to tell you, a lot of them are already exhausted. But we're pushing because it's important to be here and stay in school. The other thing, and Chad mentioned it tonight, this is just a small snippet. Homecoming last year, we didn't have it. Homecoming this year, we got a committee together, parents together, kids together, working with Mr. Bell and Mr. Preble, saying, how can we make this work? And they made it work. It's not perfect, but they made it work. I can't speak for other school districts, and I don't want to speak negatively of other school districts, but I know other school districts who didn't make it happen. We're trying, and we're doing our best. I guess that's a point that I really want to stress, and I also want to stress again, I want to thank you for being here, for listening. We're listening to you. Through conversations, we'll have a better understanding of what it is we need to do. But I think we're all on the same page. Give your children the best education we can. Keep them safe. So
Any questions from the board? Okay. Very good. All right. On to new business.
Let me give you that.
Actually, Michelle's going
Michelle's going right up.
Oh, there we go.
All right, so we got new business. Presentation by Michelle Lake on federal titles.
Okay, I have to share my screen, so just a moment, please.
Do you want me to run that for you, Michelle? Or have Kyle do it? Since he just made me walk up there. Oh, you get fancy.
All right, so I've been asked to just give a brief overview of the title funding that we receive in the district from the federal government. So this is a very brief overview. Our original allocation, this is something we apply for every year. Our original allocation this year is noted on, I'm not going to read all the numbers to you, but you can see we received funds allocation in Title I, Title II, Title IV, and this year we did not receive anything from Title V. That was, I don't know how to explain it, like a clerical thing at the Department of Education, so we didn't qualify. But we've been told that next year we should receive title funding again. So after we get an allocation, we transfer funds between those titles. And what I ended up doing is taking everything out of Title IV and moving it to Title I. That's our biggest programming, and I'll talk to you a little bit about Title I. So after the allocations, here's where everything transfers, and that's where we sit. So right now, this slide does not show carryover money. That is money that was not spent last year that gets pushed forward. But this is our application funding. So Title I is our largest program. Title I, the reason it has the largest amount of money is we pay for faculty. So this is money that we're able to use It's so that the school budget does not pay for these people, the title funding does. So that's helpful. We have a math specialist at our elementary school who's fantastic. We have a literacy specialist at that school as well, and we pay a portion of a classroom teacher from the local budget. And that was about class size reduction and so forth, so we were able to cover that. We also pay for educational technicians to work with Title I reading kids and to work with those faculty. And some of that money goes to support homeless students in our community. Yes,
You just iterate what Title I is.
yes, sir, it's right here.
Right, but I mean, okay, I'll be quiet.
So we, this is new as of last year, I believe it was last year. We qualified to be a school-wide program for Title I, which means targeted assistance program, which we normally were. We would have kids take an assessment in their reading, and if they scored a certain score below, they would get targeted assistance. So they qualified for Title I services and they would get that extra support. Now that we are a school-wide program, we're allowed to give those services to all students and work with all teachers, which is really outstanding. So it has changed the way in which we provide title services for reading and mathematics. It used to be that we might take title kids out of the classroom and work with them individually. Now we're able to push the staff into the classroom and work with the whole group. So for example, I might be, as a title person, I might be able to work with a group of kids that qualify for title and may be struggling while the classroom teacher works with others. Or I may work with others and that classroom teacher may work with the title kids. So that's an option we didn't have before, and now we do, and they're allowed to use those funds in that way. So that's really quite exciting. And also we have a math program that has become more and more robust at the elementary school as well, using our title funds. The types of support that you might see or that students might see in literacy would include, we do assessing of students to see where they are in their reading and what areas we need to target to help bring them along if they're lagging. We're able to offer small group and individual target reading support. This is exciting, I think. We're able to offer coaching to teachers, modeling lessons for teachers, demonstrating interventions and how they work, and providing classroom resources. In math, we're able to do similar things, diagnose students in their math, create an intervention plan, lesson plans, coaching for the teachers. Our math specialist, for example, last year gave teachers an option. He said, I'll come in and I'll teach with you. I'll come in and I'll teach for you and you watch me, or I'll come in and watch you and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Whatever they chose the first time, they had to chose something different the second time. But he's really, that has paid off, because in the meeting I was in this afternoon, as we're talking about mathematics and choosing a new program, they were excited. And I don't know if you realize, but a lot of times teachers are a little nervous about math at the elementary school, but they were excited. And that's in no small part because of the literacy, the math specialists we have in that building. Title II, this is for professional development with the staff. And so the types of things that Title II might pay for include a whole bunch of stuff. Summer curriculum work, leadership retreat where we plan and set goals for the school year. We are allowed to pay for substitute teachers to come into the classroom so the faculty can come out of the classroom and do training on iReady, curriculum, instructional practice, and so forth, conferences and workshops that are aligned with our school goals and professional development resources. And the last pot of money we have, although we didn't receive any this year, we have carryover from last year, and that's Title V, and we will use that money for our counseling services. We spend a large chunk of money on providing counseling services to our students, and also to provide clinical supervision for the guidance counselors and the people working with our kids, because they need that as well. So we have some funding for that. The status of our application as of tonight is we've received substantial approval, which means we're allowed to start spending the money. And we're awaiting final approval, which I don't know when that will happen. I'm not worried that it will happen. I think it will, but we're just waiting for the final approval from the Department of Education. And that is my quick overview of Title funding. Any questions?
Just a quick question pertaining to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just clarification.
Let me just say something real quick. I mean, I know I was trying to keep it public comments, for the public comment section, and I just want to say, with a lot of people here, the job of the school board meetings is for the board to conduct business. But, we have a lot of staff members from the school that have probably left their houses at 6 or 6:30 this morning, and I'm just trying to keep the meeting moving and try to keep it on task. So I just want to throw that out there that, we appreciate your comments. It may not seem like that when I have to cut people off, but we're trying to keep it. So actually, these people can go home in a reasonable hour because, they spend a long time, so.
Did we miss the question part already then?
There was a public comment section.
How are we supposed to question on things
When
here?
when I
haven't
spoke
spoken
last
yet.
meeting, you said I couldn't ask questions from up there, so I waited for the question part.
And how are we supposed to question things if things haven't been talked about yet from everybody?
The, the way that it's structured, the way that it works at a board meeting is that when you have public comment on something, that's your opportunity to speak publicly to whatever it is that you want to speak to. So during the regular part of the meeting is really for the board. The audience is here to listen. If there's something that you would like to put on the agenda or want to be considered for the agenda, then you would say something to the board chair, send them an email or something, and then we put that agenda on. That's how that works. So it's not a matter of cutting people off. It's not a back and forth. Okay. So I will answer your question. Yeah, gentleman on back had his hand raised. Let's take that.
Just want a little clarification on it. Are we considered a Title I school now because such a large number of students are falling behind?
No, that's a great question. No, absolutely not. You receive Title I services based on the number of students that need additional support. It's often done on the numbers of students that are qualified for free and reduced lunch. And if you have a high number of students who qualify, you have to be over a certain percent. You can go from the Title I targeted assistance, which is only helping those kids, to a targeted one school-wide, which you can then expand your services to all students who are in your building who qualify at that threshold. Does that answer your question?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know you couldn't ask questions. One-sided a little bit.
Michelle, are you done with your?
I am, if there are no questions from the board.
All right, Mr. Riggs, junior high goals.
And Mr. Rebel.
Okay. And Ms. Brett?
Michelle will be sharing a document, thank you, Michelle, on the screen for the audience. We're going to take a few moments tonight to go over our Winslow Junior High School goals. We met, for those of you that may not know, back on August 17th with our leadership team, which consists of our department leaders and team leaders, with the direction and some guidance, obviously, from our superintendent and our admin team, to look at two areas that we need to improve on, and one is the academic area, and one is the respectful and responsible, which pertains to a lot of different things under the umbrella. For example, attendance may be one of those things. So we spend a day at a retreat, all three schools, and as a team, much like you would in any organization, come up with some goals that you would like to accomplish throughout the school year. We then identify action steps. Action steps could be things that maybe occurred day one. Most of these you'll see are ongoing. Many times there's resources needed, such as people. I might mention Michelle Lake quite frequently in this, because a lot of it has to do with curriculum and such. And then you'll see a timeline, which again, sometimes it's very generic, such as the fall of 2021. I'll try to explain that, but also be respectful of everyone's time this evening. So the first three goals I'm going to talk about are academic related. The first one is goal number 1, use assessment data to better inform instruction in all content areas. So what we're looking for here, and I won't read verbatim, we're looking at, we use the term triangulating data. What are the data points we're using for our students to see how they're doing? A report card, for example, could be one data point. NWEA testing, which is coming up, which will be a data point that we just started in the spring as kind of a benchmark. You've heard iReady referenced as a math assessment K-12. So those are some of the examples of using that assessment data. In about a week, we're going to have an early release and in-service time for teachers, and one of their assignments with that will be diving into that data to see how, obviously, students are doing so it can inform instruction. And feel free to ask questions, board, at any time as I go through. I'm kind of summarizing rather than reading verbatim. Goal number 2, teachers will work to accelerate learning. Michelle Lake discussed about what that means in improving student engagement. A lot of these action steps are, we're referencing a list, and you see on the document list, Michelle supplied this summer and again to our staff at the early start of the year, 250 influences on student achievement. I think a good analogy would be for you sports fanatics. Watching Nick Saban coach might be a little bit different than a lot of coaches. There are strategies that he uses, high performance. It's the same thing in a classroom. When you go into a classroom, you know the difference between the Nick Sabans and maybe an average. So really trying to coach teachers and provide them the best research, best practice to improve student engagement. So these 3 goals, the one goal is to accelerate the student learning. The action steps are really taking time to use people like Michelle Lake in our district, myself, Chris, to dive into the classroom, to have discussions at faculty meetings, to share so that our best teachers are sharing and modeling some of the things that are going on within our school. You'll notice some of those timelines again reference the fall, and some are ongoing in regards to those strategies.
The third goal under academic is to research current best practices for grading of middle school students. This is something that has been discussed for a few years now between Jason, myself, and members really of the entire junior high. Now we're grading our students the way that is most effective for their needs at that particular grade level. So some of the things we will do in determining this is to examine the resources that we feel are important, that will describe what an equitable grading system is for junior high students and how we compare to that system. And if we don't need to make changes, great. If we do, how can we go about making those changes? Another thing is participating in a book study that will explore the new grading systems. We've had some teachers already take part in that really just did it on their own and did some reading, and they shared some of their books and whatnot. So we're looking to learn from them as well and the things that they found in their reading and their research. And then obviously other schools, what are they doing that is effective, and are there things that we can take from them that they find are beneficial for the junior high students and how they grade them, and using all the variations of data, and can we implement that into our schools as well to give a better detailed description of where our students are at each trimester as they move through 7th and 8th grade. So those are 3 things that will be going on in that area for the remainder of this year. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but we're certainly going to do the best we can to get there.
Are there any questions on the academic? Jay?
Could you go back to goal number 2, please? Okay, so I'm a little confused about step 1 and step 2. Step 1 addresses positive and negative influences on student achievement, and action step number 2 addresses student engagement. And student engagement is different than student achievement. So the two things that come from step one won't necessarily be involved with student engagement, they'll be involved with student achievement. So could you maybe clarify that for me?
Yeah, so of the research, there are actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, over 300 various factors. So in this, and I could share this, in terms of the student achievement, some are things that we can control and some that we can't. So part of the these action steps, for example, number one is for the teachers simply to understand a lot of the definitions of the high impact influences on student achievement, which oftentimes, when you're doing those things in a classroom, increase student engagement. Part two of that, teachers then will select. So as we share what we found already, Michelle did a presentation in regards to the list of what research would tell us as high influences on student achievement. As teachers discuss in small groups, many of them find that they're already doing many of those things. And usually the student engagement is better in those classrooms based on that. I'm not sure if that clarified it or not.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I tend to think of it more the other way, that engagement predicts achievement, and engagement is a step toward achievement. The way you just said it was that achievement leads to engagement, and certainly students who are experiencing more academic success would have a tendency to be more engaged. But if you were doing like a literal research study, I think you would find that engagement predicts achievement, not the other way around. So either I'm not understanding, or maybe it's just not coming out in a way that makes sense. As long as it makes sense to you,
I don't
that's what
disagree
matters.
with you. The engagement is probably the core, maybe should be step one, and listed as a separate. Is that what you're implying?
Well, the step number 2 refers to engagement, which would be a subset of the list from step number 1. So if it said you're going to look at the overall larger set that influences achievement, and then from that look at the subset that are specifically related to engagement, then that would make more sense to me. The way I was reading it was that there was an assumption that what came from the first was going to be about engagement, and I didn't think that was necessarily the case. Okay, thank you.
Other questions on academic?
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, and then moving on to respectful and responsible, we have 3 goals as well. Goal number 1, build positive home-school relationships. Action steps, intentional positive correspondence, ultimately build connection with our homes. We've done various things such as making phone calls home. We've created, and I've shared, our leadership team created some postcards, some samples here to share with you this evening. Just wanted you to know, and then teachers can personalize these on the back. I'm so proud, good news, and did you know a rock star lives here? So positive correspondence to homes, in a time with such negativity, and oftentimes families have such a bad feeling about school, so to reach out and be proactive in a positive light. Teachers are tracking this too, how many times they're reaching out, kind of put some responsibility on each other to do that. And that is ongoing as well. So we won't just, it's not just because it's the beginning of the school year, we'll stop doing that.
Two thumbs up.
The next goal is to build a welcoming community in our junior high space. The first step has already been completed, so to speak, but we planned an opening day that centered around field day and team building activities to welcome students back to a fun environment. It gave them an opportunity to meet their teachers in a little different atmosphere than just in their classroom, sitting and listening, going over the regular routine and expectations. So most of the day, they were outside doing different things, moving around different groups. A lot of team building, as I mentioned earlier, just reintroducing themselves back to school and feeling comfortable being back here again and just getting into that routine. So it kind of eased them into it a little bit with some fun activities that first day. And I think it went extremely well. The 8th grade did it on their first day, which was the following day. I didn't have the weather that the 7th grade had, but we were able to do it in the afternoon outside, and they did a lot of the same activities as well. So those are two things that we did. I think that really started the school year off on the right foot. The second is develop clear routines and procedures in the junior high space using a behavior matrix in grade level sessions and homerooms to build a respectful community of learners. Those have been around. You knew that we used to be part of a PBIS program. Really, that behavior matrix centered around that program we had before, but we really took those ideas and those concepts and just developed routines and expectations in different parts of the building. So how we travel about the building in the hallways, how you behave in the lunchroom, how you wait to get on the buses and so on. So for junior high age, especially with students been out for a year and a half, you got to really introduce that stuff, model it, and then just keep staying on top of it and reminding them. So we'll come back to this throughout the year. If we see things that are of high needs, we'll get them together and we'll review these. But it's important that the teachers model it and, all staff just as well as the students. So it's just developing those expectations to be respectful and responsible here at school. And that, the timeline was the first week of school. They went over it with staff, but really it's an ongoing throughout the year, basically as need arises.
And our final goal is building the social emotional life skills in our Winslow Junior High School students. This is outside of classroom, for example. We do have a health curriculum which teaches some of these things, but the skills such as managing emotions, supportive relationships, responsible decision-making, self-awareness. We have a team. If you want to talk about like interventions, you notice I didn't mention the word attendance necessarily, but we have a team that works with our students in identifying students that may struggle in one of these areas. We meet weekly with our social workers, our school counselor, our school resource officer, and come up with a plan of interventions with the families and students to work on these skills. In addition, using some of the days to, like Chris just alluded to, some of the team building activities to not go away from that. In the past, we just had a presentation on Untitled. We've had Camp Kiev as part of helping with some of this foundational work. So there's a lot of things that are going on outside of the normal school day with our extracurriculars that I mentioned before. And again, an ongoing throughout the school year, because we know the importance of social emotional for our junior high school students. Any questions on any of that? Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Guess we're back to Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me pull up this last slide. All right, so I've been asked to share a new resource that I've been working on for our school district, and that is a more robust curriculum and instruction website. And that website has gone live and will continue to evolve throughout the course of the year. So I want to give you a brief tour of it. So if you have time, the board, outside of the meeting, you could go ahead and take a look and see what's going on with curriculum instruction in our district. So to find the page, this is our homepage for the superintendent's office, and under district resources, you notice it says curriculum. And if you go to that, this is what our curriculum site looks like. And you could go from here to the live atlas where the curriculum is housed, and that was the extent of it. So I talked with Peter about a lot of the things we're working on, and he said, let's put that out on the web. So we have a new web page. If you go here, this is our new curriculum and instruction. When it loads up. All right, let me try again. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, that was a lot of work. All right, so this is the new site. And I'll just, it's hard to give you a tour, but I'll try to give you a brief tour. All of these topics you see here are also listed across the top, across the menu bar for navigating. So I created a site for district curriculum work that is presently happening, and I'll show you some of that. There's instructional practices, tips for virtual teaching. There's a site for our assessment. I have a place on there for our new teachers to the district. A place where we talk about title funding, a newsletter, things that are up and coming, how to stay connected, and so forth. So this is the home page here for curriculum instruction. I'm standing in front of Robonaut, which is a NASA, is on the NASA space station right now. So if you go across the top, district curriculum work, these are initiatives that are presently happening. So as a school board, I encourage you to take a peek when you have a chance. These are our district goals described, and then below are some of the initiatives. We've got the iReady diagnostic first, math, the K-12 vertical curriculum meetings that I mentioned, and there's a bit of a schedule there. We have a second administrative team that takes place this year, once a month, to specifically talk about curriculum instruction, Atlas and curriculum committee. So I encourage you to take a look there. Engaging instructional practices is for teachers. This is a work in progress, so as I come across things, there are some videos, there's the workshop that I gave in the beginning of school this year, those resources, so if they wanted to use that as a resource for a faculty meeting and so forth, so this page is constantly evolving. Tips for virtual teaching was really a lot that went on last year, so there are all kinds of resources, the blog that I wrote to help teachers with virtual learning tips and strategies and whatnot. The assessment page might be helpful for parents, I don't know. It gives links to connecting to our assessments, NUIA, iReady, the DRA, local assessments. It talks about the main DOE assessment schedule and so forth. So there's really a lot of information on our assessment page. And you can toggle through specifically and look at NUIA. You can specifically look at iReady. And each school has given me their schedule. So as a parent, if you wanted to know when my fourth grader is going to be doing iReady, the schedule is on our curriculum instruction page for that parent to see. I have a page for supporting our new faculty. For teachers who are new to the profession, they will meet with me in a teacher team once a month so that they get support from me. And then if you are a teacher that is not new to the profession, but you're new to our district, we are still required to provide you with some support. So those teachers will come to 2 of the teacher team meetings to learn about the Marzano framework and the iObservation observation tool, and then they will work with me on a consult basis. So that information is there for them. There's the titles. I just gave you an overview of that, but that is also listed on our webpage if you wanted to know more or see something about titles. There's a whole slew of options for teachers with technology. When COVID first hit and we were doing remote, there were teachers who did not know how to use a Google Classroom or Google Forms or all of those things. And so I quickly put together tutorial videos and resources that are on this website, and those things remain. I write a monthly newsletter specifically about curriculum instruction. So that newsletter, all of last year's newsletters are on here, and then this year's newsletters as they are being written are appearing. And those talk about curriculum and instruction and high-impact teaching strategies and so forth for our teachers too. And they receive these once a month digitally, and they get delivered in their mailboxes. There's a Stay Connected page. This is for our teachers to stay connected. So there are several Google Classrooms that I sponsor, and I have a lot of teachers in these. So if you're the math teacher, you can join my math Google Classroom, and when I get articles about math or trainings or anything, I put it in there. So we have a lot of our teachers connected through Google Classrooms in every discipline. And as well, I also run a Facebook page called For Our Teachers. And the last thing on here is the Coming Soon page, and these are things I hope to add to the site.
by the spring, I imagine having a page for each content area highlighting. For example, science, we could highlight mystery science at the elementary school, what's going on in science at the junior high, and what's happening with storyline science at the high school. We have a lot of great things going on with instruction and curriculum, and I'm really excited to have a website that's, I'm hoping will feel robust to people and will be a resource for teachers and for our community and for our school board. And that is my quick tour of our new website. I welcome you to please peruse at your leisure. Thank you.
I will ask, because I don't know if this would be appropriate, but you're having parent-teacher conferences remotely, is that what I heard? And would this be something you could link that would be helpful for that, for information saving or serving? In other words, is there anything on the curriculum page that might be nice for the parents to have a chance when you send them, okay, you're gonna have this meeting at this time, if you wanna look at the curriculum, here's the link? I don't know.
I think maybe in the future, this coming soon page, these are not ready yet.
Okay.
So if I wanted to share what my kids might be doing in science, I'm not quite able to do that yet, but I'm working on that.
So perhaps it will be.
Yeah, perhaps it would be.
Okay.
A nice place to direct parents if they have questions about it. It's just a nice place to showcase the work that we're doing,
Yeah.
and focus on curriculum instruction, so.
Wonderful job.
Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you, Michelle. Any other questions for Michelle on that topic? Very good, thank you, looks great.
Any ovation?
All right, yeah, I can talk about that. Right, I'll just drag the microphone over here. I think we're almost done with it up here. I could have gotten enough for you. Yeah. Are you sure you could have? You sure you could have? Or Kyle could have. All right. All right, next up on the agenda is the Maine School Board Association resolutions. Before I go into that, Peter did mention earlier about the Maine School Management Association Annual Fall Conference. For board members, if you would like to attend virtually, I would highly recommend it if you've never been to one. There's a lot of good clinics, a lot of good information there. On the plus side, where it's virtual, I've gone to the live in the past, which is good because when you sit down and have lunch, if you're talking with other board members and administrators, you learn about what's going on in their districts and find out how they're solving problems and things like that. While that is good, the plus side of the virtual is you can attend these live, or you have access through the clinics through November 19th. So that gives you plenty of time to see at your leisure versus having to take a couple of days, maybe from work and such to attend. So I would recommend the opportunity, because it's virtual, makes it much more doable than it might have been otherwise for some. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Why would you put a cutoff date if it's good information? You think they would not?
I think it's because the platform they're using to host it, they have a certain time frame on it, for what they paid for the hosting services. So they did it last year. I think they extended it a little bit further this year. I think they added another week to it, I think. But they have very good clinics on a host of topics, and as you can see, the preliminary program is pretty extensive, and being able to do that remotely at your leisure is advantageous to attending where you might not otherwise be able to. So. Okay, so the Maine School Board Association resolutions, you've had a chance to look at those. They come up with these proposed resolutions every year, various resolutions. They've gotten a little better at it, I think, in regards to trying to get them more succinctly written. They're also having regional meetings We're in District 6. I've attended a couple of those to help kind of vet these so that we're not doing it in mass with a couple hundred people, particularly virtually. That's difficult. So I think they were trying to, I mean, this meeting last year when we went through these resolutions was 5 hours virtually. It was brutal. So on a Friday night. So it was a blast. So I think they're trying to do a better job to make that a little more streamlined. So anyway, the way this works is these are the resolutions that are proposed. They've got proposed languages. It's not to say that other amendments and such won't come up at the general meeting that happens on whenever it was, the Saturday following this conference. I think that's the 30th, I think, but whenever it is, that I'll be attending. There could be other amendments come from the floor and such, but basically it's, for me to get a general idea of, from this board is whether or not they approve these resolutions, which was a little more difficult in the past, but I think where we've gotten more information, these are a little easier to get more of a general consensus of our board. So my opinion looking at these is I didn't see anything too awfully earth-shattering in there. Some of it's revisions due to other things that have changed in law or things that have phased out or other such things. So I guess I'm looking for thoughts. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it. We can spend as much time as you want, but if generally you're in favor of them, great. I'll take the consensus of the board, but go right ahead, Jake.
I think that one of these that does have a lot of implications, I think the implications are almost all positive. And that's the first one, the student absenteeism. I did a little mini research study in the school district where I was and found that looking at high school students that were chronically absent, more than 90% of them demonstrated absenteeism problems by the end of second grade. This is really an early intervention. Sometimes parents say they're 16 and I can't make them get out of bed. But when you look back, these kids were chronically absent when they were in primary school. So I think there's a real opportunity now that social workers and better communication with parents has become the norm in the state. This is going to give us an opportunity to do some early intervention and put some pressure and also provide assistance because a lot of times my experience has been parents who are unable to get their kids to school, it's because the parent might have a medical situation or the parent has a transportation problem. And if we identify them early and start to develop some supports for those families, then I'm hoping that we could really impact absenteeism throughout the grades, which obviously would be helpful for instruction and success. So I strongly support that one. The others I don't have any objection to, but I really strongly support that one.
Is there a timeline that this would have to be taken care of, or is this something that we could
Well,
table and have it?
our next meeting is the
Next month.
25th of October. It is immediately prior to the meeting that we confirm the date of that. Yeah, I'm just thinking when we actually have this meeting where we vote. I think that was actually moved to Saturday. I can find that real quick, I'm sure. But I think it's Saturday. If that's true, then we could table this and take it up at our next meeting to see if there's any more because that still gives me time before that meeting. Conference meeting. For the delegate assembly. I know it's right around that time, but I don't recall the exact date. Okay. Oh, 23rd, so we do have to.
So we have, okay.
Yeah, so we do have to ask the Saturday before, all right. Not the Saturday after, so anyway, I mean, again, these might not be exactly what they end up being, after many hours of discussion of a couple hundred people. But, looking for, input from the board to present them accordingly. Again, I think it'll be a little more succinct at this meeting because it was extremely free-flowing last time, and what they started with wasn't what we ended up with, so, on some fronts. And some of them are very tailored to specific school districts. This tends to be a little more, all-encompassing versus specific. So,
Joel, do you want to take action on this or just get a general consensus on how to do it?
I think a consensus is fine. I'm representing the board as a whole, but again, it doesn't end up being exactly what this is.
If that's
I'm
true,
sure. So I
then
think
the
a
vote would
consensus
be
is
meaningless because
sufficient.
it's gonna be changed anyway, so.
Well, I think it'll in general be along these lines, but if it doesn't, then I still have the vote. So
Right.
so if there's something you strongly don't want to see in there, then, you know, that's another whole matter, but again, it's consensus of the board as a whole, so.
Section on teacher evaluation.
Yeah, it wasn't.
These aren't laws, John, these are resolutions of your organization.
I know.
They don't mean anything.
This feedback would be nice.
Well, in the end, they are resolutions, it's true,
Yeah.
to a point, because they have no actionable standing. They're just
Right.
recommendations and
Their belief statements, we've got a whole book of them too.
Yeah, just giving you guidance.
providing some guidance to the DOE is what the board organization as a whole might be interested in and those sorts of things, but in the end, people in charge of the DOE can do whatever they want.
I trust your judgment and you'll be the one that's giving the final word.
So, we have a consensus that we're okay with what we've got here and nothing in anybody's, any big heartache on. Go for it. All good?
Yeah, I mean, it would be really, really nice if they would have verbiage in there that talked about the interventions and alternative programs should be supported, if they provided examples of those or resources you could use to go get those and look at those rather than just an idea an amorphous idea.
Yeah, a lot of times that's what you see in these is such as that. It's an idea. And the idea isn't necessarily a bad thing to obviously support alternative ways of making sure people can receive an education.
Oh, no, the ideas are good ideas, but it would help if there were teeth behind the ideas to actually.
And not knowing enough
Get
about how
results.
many other school districts don't offer that might be what they're trying to achieve is to invite some other districts that they need to be looking at it as we do and others do, but not all.
It also reflects how many different types of districts and situations there are in the state.
Yes.
And for a statewide organization to identify even one or two selective teeth, they might work in some communities and not others. So I think they leave the teeth to us.
Yeah.
They advise us to do something and they let us decide what works in our community.
Like
Through
there's a
the whole
piece,
organization.
Yeah, right.
Like there's a piece in here on, there was some discussion at our local, our regional meeting about, including looking for various ways and such, but develop and implement curriculum policies that reflect the best interest of students of the community and include in-person, remote, regional, collaborative learning opportunities. Well, you're gonna do it locally. You can look at these things. You don't have to do any of them. You can do all of them. I mean, it is really kind of wide open. But at least maybe get you thinking about it if you weren't before. I think that's really what it's all about, so. I don't know. So. Right?
I think, just to summarize, the general consensus of all of this is exactly what you said. You looked at it and said, there's nothing in here that's glaringly jumping out at you, but you really like the 95% attendance rate. There's nothing in here that's earth-shattering this time around. So if the board is okay with some of the things that they're suggesting, those will jump on board when it comes time to do it.
There have been some I've seen in the past that are very, it's proposed by one school district, it's thrown on the agenda, everybody discusses it, but it's really about one school district, and that really should be what we're talking about as a whole organization. So that didn't occur this year, which is good. So, all right, so I will take the consensus that there's not a lot objection to this fairly generalized amendment. All right, very good. Surplus of athletic equipment.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. I want to be real brief, out of respect for everybody's time, but we'd like to see if we get board approval to just to see if we can explore selling some equipment, some athletic equipment. We have a 5-man blocking sled, which is in great shape. Our team no longer uses blocking sleds. We've got 3 out back, 2 of them are in great shape. The retail value of this is about $5,300. We believe the value is anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500. So we just want to see if the board would give us approval to even explore that. We wouldn't sell it without your approval. And the other piece is a high jump mat, which new had the value of $7,200. We were lucky enough last year we bought a new jumping mat. Ideally, my coach would love to be able to keep the jumping mat in the school so we could use it in the winter time for indoor track. But without proper placement in the store, he said you could explore looking if we could sell it. Because right now it's up top of the barn. And if we don't bring it in school in the fall, it's going to sit up there because we're not going to use it in the spring. So both of these things, we may not find a marketplace. There may not even be a marketplace for either of these items, but we just want to see if the board would give us an opportunity to explore selling these things.
Will the money stay in the athletic department?
I don't know how that works.
So one question on the high jump mat. So we use it this fall.
But we just got a new one. We just got new.
Oh, this is the old one.
This is the old one.
Okay. All right.
Still in pretty good shape. Ideally, we'd love to have it be stored in this building, so an indoor track, you can use it for high jumping. But we just don't have the space in this building to store it here. So what that basically means is it's probably gonna sit on top of that barn, and eventually we'll have some rodents eventually be into it.
So the new high jump mat, we are gonna store that.
We've already stored it, and we've done some pest control around it.
Okay.
Yes.
What about storing it in the junior high?
Doug?
Well, the primary thing is it'd be really difficult to get them in the building because they're so big. We have the regular doorways, whereas on the track bar, we have the big, the big bay doors. We can simply get them in and get them out. That would be a problem, trying to get them in over there.
Bill has that.
To answer the question about where the money goes, I believe it's board policy that it goes in as general fund. It goes in as a
fiscal agent.
And that may change their mind on selling. I just wanted to see if the board would give me the permission to explore selling. We wouldn't sell it without your approval. Again, if it goes to general funds, that may change the football program. They may keep it out there as a lawn ornament. I don't know. But right now we do have 3 sleds out there. And one's in the one that we're proposing that look to sell is in great shape. They just don't use the sleds anymore like they used to. I know you love the sled, Peter, but.
I mean, it's, when you say they don't, is that a fairly new thing, or have we not used it for a few years?
I don't think they've used it in the last since I've been, I don't remember seeing them.
Okay, so it's been a while that we have not
Yeah.
used it.
Yeah.
Not a question.
And it goes in as revenue. That's the word I was looking for as I'm approaching 12 hours of being in this.
Right.
And again, I don't want it to be a long conversation for that reason right there, just, you know, I don't know these policies, I told these, both groups, I come explore this, ask the permission to explore.
Going once, going twice, sold.
So I think it's gonna come back to us to approve
Right,
anyway.
I'm just gonna-
So I
I'm just
guess
gonna
at this
explore.
point, I would explore it, see what the possibilities are. I guess needs to be the consensus, and it's gonna come back for approval.
Yep.
Whatever you come up with.
Like, you know, we'll post it, see what the best offers, and if we get it, we'll bring it back to you before anything happens.
I mean, I just assume that's not, give them away if we can find it, you know.
But I also don't wanna see something rot up in that barn, sit there forever.
Not getting,
Like, we got school, with the board policy, we have scoreboards that don't work anymore, and then now we have to come to commission you to dispose of things, so I just, you know.
Call the question.
Yeah. Move the question, yeah.
Well, we can just move forward here, because I don't know if we need to vote on this per se. Move forward, and see what you get, we'll vote on it when it comes firm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
for Nathan.
Request for leave of absence.
We have an educational technician who is requesting to have a leave of absence. She's currently out on a leave right now, and she needs a little more time. This individual, does an outstanding job at the elementary school in the program which she works in. This leave would be without pay. She's asking for it to be from now until December. I've had conversations with Erica about her performance and everything that she offers the program, and with Kyle, and both are very strong supporters of her and would like to give her the opportunity to hang on to that position for the amount of time that she's requesting to see if things work. The thing that we have right now is we have such a shortage of people that if we can hang on to somebody who's good, I would strongly recommend we do that. If we can think through and patch things up between now and then to get her back, it would be good for all of us. But I would support people who need.
Move to approve leave. One question before. Is there a plan to use CARES money to hire backfill, if there is even backfill available?
We have plans to use CARES money to hire interventionists and substitutes. We can't find them. We have been advertising, we've been looking, and knock on wood, we are very fortunate that we are in the position we're in. It's like that airplane that's been shot and we keep coming back, putting a piece of tape on it, and we take off again every day. That's kind of where we're at. And if you look at Kyle Price over there and Erica every single morning, I mean, they are just scrambling to do what they need to do. And same thing with the other fellows as well.
Let's put an article in the paper of this very widespread issue with ed techs and other staff. So, all right, we have a motion from John. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Carl. Any other discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, vote of appointments. We have quite a list, so I guess if there's no objection, I'd entertain a motion to take them as a lot.
Move to vote on them as a lot.
Second.
We have a second. Do we have any comments or otherwise?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I know what all of these people do for us, except for the Kennebec Governance Board Chairperson and the Kennebec Governance Board Building Rep. What do those folks do for us?
Keep my license in operation because they make sure that you have certified teachers and techs.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Very, very.
There's no other questions, all in favor of approving, approving that we take them as a block of appointments? Okay, that is unanimous. Okay, so I guess I'd entertain to approve the block of appointments.
So moved.
All right, there's no move by Earl. Do we have a second? Hillary's got a second over here. All right. Any other comment? All in favor of the block of appointments? It is unanimous. All right. Resignations, we accept those already. So some of those are switches and other such things, but we thank them for their service. Some of them have been doing some of these things for a while. Other business, we have an executive session. So before we go into executive session, I think some people are gonna be leaving us. Is there anything other business we need to discuss that's not related to executive session? Okay. We'll take a 2-minute break and then we'll have a motion for executive session.
Just a reminder that there's a live mic going on.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that you're aware before you go into
So
executive
Jason will have to
session.
turn that off, but then he has to turn it back on if we come out of executive session. Okay. So there's no actionable items on executive session, so. All right, very good. So Jason, I think I guess we need to make a motion on those, and then you can, turn us off. Thank you, everybody. You're shorter than last time. I can give you that. Oh. Yeah.
I don't use that as no, it's a perfect example. I use it when I was going to.
What is this say exactly?
Yeah.
Executive sessions are